To introduce my husband, Michael. He is currently in his third year as Superintendent of Education and Wellbeing at the Simcoe County District School Board. Mike began his career quite a few years ago as a part-time teacher in 1989 with Simcoe County District School Board, and he later became a contract classroom teacher with experiences. He started in French as a second language, and he spent many years teaching special education. Over the years, he's had the privilege of working at 10 different schools in Simcoe County in various areas. He's been a classroom teacher, he's been a vice principal, he's been a principal. He's also been involved as assistant principal of special education for 3 years. He also was a course facilitator with the Ontario Principals Council Qualification Program. Right now, he's currently in his role as superintendent. He supervises and supports elementary and secondary schools in Collingwood, in Clearview Township, in Essa Township, and in Wasaga Beach. His current system portfolio work includes responsibilities specific to staff and student well-being. His central team includes administrative members as well as attendance counselors, child and youth workers, and social workers. So that's a little bit about what Mike does with his work. I can tell you as his husband, he is a proud father to William, Lucas, and Jack. And I would say that these are older teenagers, but they're actually not teenagers anymore. Our youngest is actually 19 now. Mike enjoys hiking. He loves to ski. He loves to travel. And he has a keen interest in his family's apple business, which he's been involved with off and on since he was a little child, working with his grandfather, his dad, and his grandmother, and his dad, and his grandfather as well. So anyways, it gives me great pleasure to turn the speaker thing over to Mike.
Thanks, Kim, and good morning, everyone. It's certainly my pleasure to be here today. I always feel at home with Rotary Club of South Georgian Bay, and it means so much to me to be here today. And my focus is to share our ongoing commitment as a school system to well-being of students and families, staff, community, and in particular supporting wellness throughout the pandemic. Well-being is a particular focus of our strategic priorities with the school board, and in particular, our focus is on positive sense of self and belonging, creating a culture that is safe and healthy and respectful, and an appreciation for outdoor and environmental education programs and practices. In my opening address to over 100 participants at a recent virtual outdoor education conference that my team planned for educators and community partners at the beginning of May, I shared the following comments, and I want to share them with you today. Throughout the pandemic, we have all likely experienced challenges and changes that have impacted us in some way, both professionally and personally, in our daily lives, at work and at home. We have been required to adapt, adjust, balance, pivot, rethink, transition. We have been required to make choices and take actions for the safety, health, and well-being of ourselves, our family, our friends, and our world like no other time in our lifetime. Some of these challenges and changes and choices can leave us feeling tired, unmotivated, dull, indifferent, and perhaps just purely exhausted. A recent New York Times article by organizational psychologist Adam Grant refers to languishing, a term originated by sociologist Corey Keyes to describe the neglected middle child of mental health, stuck on the spectrum between depression and flourishing. Grant suggests that we all may languish now and then as a result of COVID fatigue. We lose focus and motivation, struggle with interruptions and inattentiveness. And Grant says fragmented attention is an enemy of engagement and excellence. Time and attention to being in and appreciating the moment are important factors to our physical and emotional well-being. We always must remember that making choices and taking action, as difficult as it can be sometimes, keeps us moving forward as individuals and as a community. And moving forward is the direction in which we must go. Setting SMART goals, specific, timely, and perhaps just small, but meaningful in the moment, can help us engaged and keep us enthused so that we may be as well as we can be. And I share this with you today because it reminds me of the focus and the intention and the motivation of our school administrators, our principals and our vice principals, and the time and attention that they have paid to their school communities. And I think about the last 15 months in particular, they've kept our communities moving through and moving forward. And the goals that they aspire to each and every day include continued helping school staff to grow in confidence and to take action in supporting and promoting student mental health and well-being. And also, they have continued to authentically engage with staff, community partners, parents, and families, and really keeping the needs of our students central to all decisions that they make as school leaders. And of course, they have led and continue to lead with compassion, and they include parents and families as partners in the process. And also, we're very proud of our administrators because they continue to consider student voice and engaging young leaders to boost the momentum for promoting mental health and well-being in our schools. It's a daunting task some days. And then I think of our educators and our education support staff and all that they do each and every day to continue to make a difference. And yes, it can be the difference one child at a time. And that's all it takes, and that's all it can make to make a difference. So in the last 15 months, and as they always do, our educators and support staff in our schools, they continue to do things that make a huge difference, including just creating a safe and supportive, respectful physical and social environment in their classrooms and schools. And that's extremely important. And also to include students, and that means student engagement. And we've experienced lots of student disengagement and family disengagement throughout the last 15 months. And we relate that a lot to COVID fatigue. And we really are looking at meeting kids and families where they're at, not where they're not, but understanding and validating and appreciating differences that may exist and the needs that arise, and then providing really responsive action. So to do that, you really need to understand your kids in your classroom. And that's where it makes the difference. Teachers and our support staff in our schools really do work hard to continue to create those conditions for a really positive classroom climate. They also are responsible and continue to promote great teaching and engaging lessons and really creative outside the box thinking for providing learning opportunities, whether it be in an in-person environment as we've been in our schools this year, and also in remote distance learning that we've experienced as we've been pivoting throughout the pandemic. And then of course, keeping partnerships and keeping communication and the doors and windows of communication open with our parents and families and community resources, extremely important. And that's how our teachers and education support workers, our custodians, everyone who has a shared responsibility in our schools have really continued to work hard to make that difference. And as Kim mentioned, I have the great pleasure of working with a strong central team. I work with a mental health lead who is a registered social worker. I have a centrally assigned principal of well-being who's on our team. We lead a team of social workers and child and youth workers and attendance counselors who continue to provide resource and consultation and support service to our staff and our students. And we believe that wellness is really a foundational theme in our weekly messages that our team sends out to administrators, and the professional learning opportunities that we provided this year. They have a theme of hope and resilience and positivity to keep people moving forward, engaged, so that they can be the best they can be. We really rely on our social media presence as a school system to promote what's happening in our schools and to continue to illustrate and validate hope and optimism, positivity during some very dark times that we've experienced over the last 15 months, but we do see that hope is on the horizon. And when needs arise, we work to understand the issue, the concern, and then our goal is really to continue to provide responsive action and support accordingly at a school level and a community level. And that's the nature of our ongoing work that we're very proud of. And I'm proud of my team for what they do. So I thought at this time I would share with you what is actually happening in our schools and how our teachers, our education support workers, our administrators have worked hard to replace words like tired and unmotivated, dull, indifferent, exhausted with examples of hope, optimism, positivity, resilience, and overall wellness. So I asked my schools to give me some examples. They knew that I was coming today to share. And so I was really pleased with the examples that I received from our schools. So I want to share them with you now. And these are from the perspectives of our teachers and staff in our schools. Teachers take time just to chat with kids online at the start of class as they pop on and ask how they are, ask about outside events of school to continue to maintain and further develop those personal relationships and connections. Another school shared with me that we continue to partner with community organizations to promote learning and well-being. For example, we had the Magic of Children's in the Arts program provide virtual art lessons to all classes with a focus on developing creativity and promoting health and wellness. The students' artwork is displayed in the greater community through their virtual art show. Many staff did a 30-day self-improvement challenge. We each picked something to work on, like fitness, guitar, starting to learn a new language, and encouraged each other to stick with it. Another staff shared with me that they regularly maintain communication with students and families outside of Google Classroom by using email, by making phone calls and making connections in unique ways with families to keep them engaged. And schools had fun theme days like dress up days or sharing personal things, online games, social time, running a marathon as a class, scavenger hunts, mindful minutes, outdoor learning opportunities, special guests, and lots of cool things. So it just goes to show that our schools have and continue to work to engage and to involve parents and our students and provide responsive action. And in closing, I just want to share with you as we come to the end of another school year in anticipation of the new year before us in September, I captured this tweet last night as I was scrolling, and it's from an educator, author, acquaintance of mine. She's a retired superintendent in York Region. And she tweeted, "My wish for my grandsons next year is that schools not focus on losses and gains, rather purposeful inclusion, support great teaching, equitable learning opportunities, and strong relationships. I hope for healthy kids learning in a dynamic and healthy school." And I thank you for time this morning and the opportunity to be here and join you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And Jane is going to stick handle the question and answer period now. So Jane,
First
over
of
to
all,
you.
Mike, thank you so much. It's really refreshing early in the morning to hear a positive message, and there was a lot of positivity there. I love the fact that you're outside, and I can even hear the birds tweeting behind you. So, so anyone, there was a lot of meat in what Mike was saying. So there's lots of opportunity for questioning.
Hi, Jane, I have a question.
Good.
Michael, great presentation. Great to see you. Glad you have been able to deal with this pandemic in such a positive way. You talked a little, I just want to address one of the points you were talking about, remote distance learning. And without being political, you know, in the last round of negotiations between the province and the teachers unions, there was an apparent focus on remote distance learning. The province was demanding more. The teachers were pushing back for more in-classroom time. And of course, no one could possibly know to the extent of remote distance learning going on now. Nobody could have predicted it. What are some of the key points that both sides have learned about remote distance learning that maybe we didn't know before?
Thanks, John. Good question. I appreciate that. And there's always been a focus on distance or remote learning through either e-learning or the TVO provision for students. And a lot of our secondary students do and can participate in remote learning. It certainly has required a lot of shifting, though, to distance learning with respect to school closures and no opportunity to be in person, but following ministry guidelines and health protocols, the requirement for teachers to provide what we call synchronous or in-person real-time learning through the internet. And so it's caused some challenge, some tribulation, I would say, but it's also brought out the best in our teachers. We have a lot of teachers who have really stepped up to that challenge of providing quality instruction online and keeping kids engaged in that way. We hear a lot of good news stories. Some families have really felt the benefit of learning from home, and they've chosen to do that. Whereas others, they prefer that face-to-face. Nothing really replaces face-to-face and that human connection, but we've seen some positive positive aspects of it, I would say.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else with a question? There was lots of food for thought.
I have a question. I understand that the government is going to be providing funds for tutoring for kids who have lost their way during this pandemic. Have you yet heard how that will translate to help the kids in our area?
Thank you. And yes, the government's provided additional supplementary funds through grant monies. And what that is going to allow school boards to do is to provide summer programming for students. Summer camps, we have special education camps, we have what we call STEAM camps arranged for students who choose to register. And what I mean by that is the integration of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So our staff at our board in achievement are really working hard to create those programs for those families and students who choose. We also have programs that we will be having in place at the end of the summer for students for transition purposes, for all by choice. Parents and families can register to be a part of these programs in terms of looking at closing gaps and really focusing on moving forward.
Anyone else? I think I saw Cora's hand up. I'm not seeing my full screen actually, so.
Yeah.
But I
Cora's
thought I
hand's up.
did see Cora, you had your hand up, I think, didn't you?
Yes. It's not a question. It's something to say. Hi, Mike. Nice to see you. Long time no see. I learned something today. I learned something good today. That if I'm not going to see the sunshine this coming, when the ice will start to fall, I will make myself as the sunshine beginning this winter. Thank you, Mike.
Awesome, Corey. Thank you.
I have a question.
Mike, I have a question.
Okay,
It's
go
Frank. You mentioned the social media presidents playing a role in the system. How does the board and the teachers have any control over social media with the kids?
Thanks, Frank. The board, our communications department, is quite active on our various social media platforms, promoting events and activities that are happening in our schools on a daily basis. And our schools have their own sites as well, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, Facebook pages, and they maintain those and they can promote and show pictures and access to that. And then individual teachers also may have their own social media accounts, and they can do the same, mindful of privacy and confidentiality rules related to sharing. But the presence is quite positive as well. And I do see from Sue, the Interact Club, community awareness campaigns. Yes, so certainly students are involved in that way.
Thank you. Anyone else at the moment?
Yep, Jane, I have a
yeah.
question. Mike, this is a little more somber question, but anyways, grief counseling. Are grief counselors part of your team within the school board? And in addition, are they school specific, or or like a traveling team? And what kind of training have they had?
Thank you, President Mike. Yes, we have social workers, so they're registered social workers in our secondary schools, in each of our secondary schools in the board, and also elementary families of schools. So not necessarily a social worker at every elementary school, but associated with a family of schools. So for example, one of our elementary social workers would provide resource and support to our 4 elementary schools in Collingwood. And we also, in addition to that, we have a traumatic incident response team that is within my responsibility at the board. And should there be a situation that requires support at a school level, then the additional training that our social workers and our principals have taken to provide that specialized support, it's deployed if and as necessary. And it is also inclusive of child and youth workers who also work in the area of responding to traumatic incidents and crises. But it is, it's certainly necessary, and each board does have some kind of a response team, whether they call it traumatic incident or grief counseling. But we have a very skilled coordinator on our team in particular who is responsive to what a principal may require to support their school community in the time of crisis and need.
Good. Anyone else?
Jane, it's Martin.
Yeah.
Mike, I think congratulations on keeping your teachers very positive and engaged. I do want to raise the issue that not every family that a child belongs to is strong and supportive. And I do have the feeling that there are a number of disengaged students and students who don't have the support at home and probably are thinking of dropping out or have dropped out in this process. And I wonder, am I wrong? I'm hoping I'm wrong, but that's my suspicion, that there are a sector of students that don't have the family support that are probably leaving school. Is this wrong?
Thanks, Martin. And you've touched on a really important issue, and that's student engagement and disengagement. And students can become disengaged for a variety of reasons. And sometimes it can be just, as I mentioned, fatigue of COVID, being at home online, where for other families it's worked very well and they prefer to be, and they've chosen to remain in a learn at home environment. Our attendance counselors have been working really hard to continue to reach out to families. And there is a spectrum of ability, I would say, and we recognize that families might be in crisis at this time, and we have to be really responsive to that, and to not jump to conclusions, but to provide that responsive support. But we continue to work on engaging, and it comes in different shapes and forms, but it certainly is an issue of concern that it's really caused people to reach out communicate and connect in unique and in creative ways, whether it's just a phone call. Some teachers say that they've not seen their kids online. So if you haven't, then make that call and make that connection and be welcoming and supportive. And a wraparound approach really is key for those families that really need that additional support.
Hi, Jane. May I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for all the work you and your team have been doing. Absolutely critical. I know what the statistics are when things are going well, as we say, and yet we deal with a huge number of crises. Any idea of what your increase in statistics are now in terms of the particular case count that has increased and the number of situations that you've had to address in the last 15 months?
Thanks, Janine. I would say one would be school attendance and creative ways, like I mentioned, to keep kids engaged in school. We're pleased that over the course of time, I would say well-being is certainly an area that we've been obviously focused on. Mental disorders have not necessarily increased that we know during this time, but certainly anxieties have risen. So we look at school attendance, student participation. We look at assessment data to continue to guide our next steps. I hope that answers what you were looking for.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else with a question? Yes, John Stransky has one.
Good morning, Mr. Giffen. Mike, I can't think of a year where the teachers and the students will be so glad to see the end of it, and that school's out for summer will ring loudly in a couple of weeks. Where are we at as far as supply of teachers? I mean, there have been huge surpluses at times where lots of people were coming in and there were no jobs. Has COVID changed that, or are demographics changing that, where there's more prospects for young teachers to get contracts?
Thanks, John. I would say that there's a need, because there are times when we haven't been able to fill occasional spots. There have been lots of cases where it's been unable to fill because if a teacher is away, we need to replace that teacher. And it's been a matter of finding a teacher to come into the class. So I think there is room and there is prospect for more young people to get into the profession. We also know that there are a lot of people who for them, teaching may be a second career. So we are seeing that whether it's teachers, whether it's educational assistants, there is that need to have the proper number of occasional staff to fill when there's a vacancy in a school.
I have a question, Jane.
Yes.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning.
We've been getting emails at home about if our kids are interested in enrolling in the at-home learning program starting in September. Of course, Joey, being a social animal, was like, just delete that, ignore that, Mom. Like, he definitely wants to be back in person in September. But has there been a big uptake in that? Or would you even know yet? Have they even made any announcements on what the numbers are at this point?
Hey, Mike, do you want me to take that one?
Mr. Paul.
My question
Paul,
was who your favorite senior team member is, your favorite colleague on the senior team. So he's not going to answer that. So obviously it's not me.
So Mr. Paul is, he's been integral with elementary, the elementary learn at home in our school board this year. So Mr. Paul, if you want to jump in, you go ahead, sir.
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure to speak to this lovely group on upcoming Almost Taste of the Town weekend, when I would be usually spending lots of time with you nice people.
That's right.
So Sue, great question, Sue. Last year, we started the Learn at Home program for elementary schools, kindergarten through grade 8s. And last year we had about 7,500 kids. We put together about 300 classes, regular classes, as well as special education classes and French immersion classes. And hi, Joey. And this year we sent the survey out to all of our families asking if they are interested in the Learn at Home program. And last night at our program standing committee meeting, I let them know that we were just over 1,900 students this year who are interested in the Learn at Home program for September. So we're in the process of making classrooms and staffing them and all that good stuff right now with our friends in HR. So it's gone from about 7,500 this year to about 19, a little over 1,900 for next year.
How difficult is that to administrate? Because I'm sitting here thinking, we're literally now introducing a third almost Board of Education. We've got the provincial one, we've got the separate school one, and now we've got this online learning component. It's almost like we've got a third school system developing. How is that going to be? I mean, the administration must be just magnifying all the time.
Oh, actually, Jane, Mike knows it was a piece of cake last year. It just happened. No, I'm just kidding. It was not a piece of cake whatsoever. But luckily, we have our HR departments are fantastic. We have a lot of principals who are very experienced in staffing who helped out in creating these classes. Honestly, we put 300 classrooms together and staffed them in about a day and a half. And put that together. Now, we don't want to do that again this year, obviously. That's why we've asked people to commit to the program. But all school boards, whether they're English Catholic, French Catholic, Protestant separate, public boards, Catholic boards, all of them are expected from the ministry to have a Learn at Home program for both elementary and secondary schools. So it's just something, it's part of our new normal. It's just as everyone has in their life and work had to make some changes to the way everything works. We've had to do the same with the school board. So it's certainly been interesting, but also when you do something and it works out pretty well, it's pretty rewarding as well.
Thank you. We probably have time for one more question. Is there anyone that wants to have the final word here? All right then. Mike, thank you so much for your talk today. We've all learned a lot. You can tell from the engagement of questions here that we're all very keen to hear what's happening in our school systems and the well-being of our children. You've had a really difficult year, and we just really hope that the coming year will be a breeze in comparison, and that we'll have a whole lot of really happy children who will be re-engaged in the program. So to thank you for your presentation today, we will be vaccinating 25 children in your name. So thank you so much. And for all the work that you are doing, you're not having an easy time. So thank you.